Okay, let's start the show.
It's May 21st, 2015. Welcome to This Is Only Test, the official podcast of Tested.com. I'm Will Smith. Directly 2 seats to my left, trying to get into the Oculus thing, Jeremy Williams.
Hello.
Oh my goodness.
Am I hot? I feel very loud.
That's not a question you should ask me.
There we are.
You are.
That is a personal question.
Have you been working out?
I feel
A question of self.
Did I turn your
reflecting?
That's
volume
better.
down a little bit?
Yeah, it's better.
Your
That,
headphones
all
might have
that
been hot.
electric skateboarding.
that's not doing it for me.
You're getting a little. You're getting the dad bod.
I've never been introduced
Don't
first.
Stop it.
That's what they call that now.
No,
Dad
it's not.
bodding. I heard that on Fallon the other night.
No, you heard
Dad bod.
probably on Kathy Lee.
No, I heard it on Fallon.
Oh boy.
He had a whole bit about it because he's a dad.
Daddy fat.
Yeah, daddy. Yeah, it's just it's a new thing. It's the new. Nobody wants to cut a 40-year-old.
This is the before picture, people.
Well, I am the before picture.
Yep.
I'm also the after picture. So,
Great start.
yeah, big weekend this weekend. We went to Makerfaire. Jeremy went to Pinagogo.
Did you both go to Makerfaire?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I went to Pinagogo.
And I went to MakerCon, which I think we talked about it a little bit last week. Yeah. Makerfaire was really good this year. I was like
It's the 10th anniversary of Bay Area Maker Fair, the flagship Maker Fair.
It was the first, right?
Yes, 10th anniversary, which is it's a long time. I've only been to 7 of them.
Did you go to the? I went to a couple before Tested, but not the first one or two.
Tested haven't only been there
2010.
5 years.
This is our 6th year, right?
I've been to at least 7 of them.
This is our 6th year. This is like-
So, surprisingly, did not feel there were more things there than ever. They had new areas for booths, whole big tent, new tent area, but fewer people than ever. Did not feel nearly as crowded
you serious?
than years past. I think for
think
2 reasons.
That's not what I heard.
2 reasons. I don't know what the final numbers are. I only went on Saturday.
There was much more space is the big reason.
So maybe it was because it was more spread out.
How did
And
they get more
so-
space?
Because they built up new tents and new places.
They into some parking lots that weren't there previously.
Oh,
stuff
good.
Like I don't know if you've ever been, but
Yeah.
it is. The other thing they've gotten much better at is designing the space to accommodate a large, massive throng of people. So, like, if in those inside rooms, not the dark room necessarily, but the one where all the tables and the small booths are, previously they would pack those way too tight so that there were way too many aisles, and they were too narrow, so it would just be like one massive traffic jam after the next. Since I want to say like 2 years ago, they started widening those aisles up, which means losing some exhibits, but it makes it much more humane for everyone involved.
So also the weather was good for us, not super sunny, but maybe it dissuaded people from wanting to go out because it wasn't super nice, a little cold, a little windy.
Yeah.
But that's
rained a little bit.
That totally worked for us because super bright. It's terrible to stand out all day in the sun.
Yeah.
And then also no on-site parking. The big parking lot for the San Mateo County Fairgrounds, reserved purely for the exhibitors, the makers, and the sponsors. Everyone they pushed everyone heavy to take shuttles from public transportation.
And they ate into that space a little bit for to put one of the big tents up and some of the other stuff. So they used that parking lot, some of it for more exhibits, and then also TV trucks and exhibitors.
Wow.
And stuff
Those
like that.
things combined, perception was at least fewer people, less crowded, which doesn't mean it's not to say that wasn't a great experience. I think we saw some of the cool stuff we've seen at Maker Fair yet.
Yeah.
But it's just good that we didn't have to rub shoulders against people in the sun.
It was nice to not be pouring sweat all day, basically.
What'd you see that was exciting?
Well, okay, so the lighthouse, you talked to Alan.
We'll talk about that in the VR minute.
Okay, so we'll save that for the VR minute. We're banking content already. What else did we see that was good? There was a team called Megabots that is building they want to make a league of giant fighting mechs, like 17, 20-foot tall
Like
ones.
human-driven mechs?
On legs.
Yeah.
Like Mech Warrior style, not like exosuits, right?
Okay.
And they had the first concept up, which was based on a tractor platform. So it had tank treads. And then there was this enormous 2-armed robot that had a driver and a gunner.
with pneumatic
Paintball guns.
launchers,
Yeah.
giant potato guns. It looked impressive, and I've seen these people at Makerfaire or at New York Comic Con before. They have a sponsor. They work with Autodesk to develop one of the arms.
They have VC funding.
These mechs are really impractical, and I don't think they'll be spectacular in the type of
They're slow.
show that they want to produce with this, whether it's live or for video. And so it's a great thing to get kids excited about engineering, but I wouldn't invest in their giant megabots league right now.
I got to sit in the cockpit.
Will got in the cockpit, and the most important thing,
It uses a Sci-Tech X52 as the controller.
Oh wow!
Yes.
Just like Elite.
Just like Elite,
like Elite.
just like Star Lord's spaceship, X52
Is that right?
in that one, I think.
I don't.
I wanna remember.
I will not confirm that.
I'm sure there's a list someplace of all the places
Yeah.
that joystick has shown up in film.
Does it walk?
It right now is
Treads.
on treads.
Well, it does
and
move,
it stands
though.
up, but
Yeah.
their goal is to get it walking, and also
Yeah.
their goal is to have different designs and allow people to buy kits to
And
build their own.
The idea is to have mech on mech combat.
Yeah.
Yeah, with paintball.
Right,
so-
paintball, not actual contact.
No punching. Think Mech Warrior, not like heavy gear.
Mech Warrior has
or
missiles and bullets, but you're talking about paintball, right?
These are right now.
Yeah.
I mean, presumably, so they're making their own paintballs, which I thought was cool.
Oh.
Like they're casting shells and then filling them with
they're
paint.
massive. They're
paint cannons.
They're like 5 inches across. They're huge.
Wow.
So one of the things that they're talking about doing is like other types of weapons. Like you could have like a arcing catapult type weapon or something like that comes off the back.
Yeah.
I asked them a question about heat management and they laughed. Because that's when I think of Mech Warrior, I always think of having to manage the heat sinks.
Important resource, yeah.
It seemed like they want to have a slow, deliberate pace of combat, not super twitch exosuit rockets. And I like Norm. I wonder how interesting that'll be on TV. But golf. People watch golf. So
I think when you're selling robots battling each other, there's a level of expectation in your head, at least, that I didn't think they met.
I would hope the engineering would be a part of that show. Right?
Yeah.
The building
Yes.
process, you get
Yes.
involved, and then when
Exactly.
you see it doing anything, you're sort of a part of that
well,
journey.
Right.
So the other interesting thing that they did, we didn't get into in the video, is that all the armor is styrofoam. So it's
foam armor. So the idea,
Yeah.
yeah.
So like when you take a hit, then they'll like if you take a hit to the cockpit, the gunner it's all mesh. The gunner and the driver in the background get just hosed in paint. If you hit a paintball on a side panel, it'll squirt paint into the center of the
Yep.
there's people are going to come out of this messy. It's going to be like Nickelodeon, is what they said specifically. So
okay.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting.
I could see a Nickelodeon style, like not taking it too seriously.
Yeah.
More about the humiliation and getting splattered.
I mean,
How did you get slimed on You Can't Do That on Television?
just you participated in. You can't do that on television.
You said something. Like, I don't know or something.
Was it the magic
There
word?
was a phrase, then you would get slimed due to it.
Ladies and gentlemen, today's secret word is slime. When we say slime, Jeremy gets slimed.
Oh, boy.
So a bunch of other things at Maker Faire. We also chatted with a guy named Justin Gray. He runs a company called Gray Works, and he also makes robots. They're repurposed old farm tools
And
he
commercial
converts
thing, too.
and
Yeah.
commercial vehicles, and he converts them to electric vehicles, and then sets them loose. And these look like Mad Max style robots. Sets them loose on furniture,
Like washing
and-
machines?
and old and junkyard. So he had like they're not massive. They're maybe the size of a tractor at the most. But we're talking about like destroying, having like 4 of them run amok in a landfill, destroying old things.
Well, they're basically. It seems like a Burning Man project one.
Totally, yes. It's an art project. It's not
Well-
purely he's interested in creating EVs, and 2, he's interested in creating moving sculptures that can destroy things.
So he like the things that he was converting were like the small size excavators, tractors, lawn tractors, stuff like that. He also makes a front end loader that's robotic that you've probably seen before. It's called the Roby.
He works with this guy who they make they want to build EVs for
Industry.
for plumbing, for farming, and technology's getting better for that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna go ahead and tell you, when I was a kid and had to mow my parents' fields, and it was 8 hours a week, every week, sometimes twice if it rained, I would have given anything to have a robot mower that could handle big fields and
That
drive a
robot
real tractor.
would have earned your allowance.
Yes, yes.
Other
Totally.
things at Makerfaire, we'll chat with these people who made a design company who designed a bicycle, the Denny bicycle.
That's right.
And they won an Oregon bike competition last year, so they're actually making it in production.
Like it was a bike of the future competition,
Yes.
right?
So several innovations in this bicycle. One, the handlebar is the lock. So the handlebar is like
A U-lock.
A U-lock has with both ends, and you remove the handlebar, and it clamps onto through both tires.
I like it.
Both
So
wheels
that's-
and the frame.
And then you lock it through Bluetooth, so it's all smart and remote controlled unlocking, locking. Had no chains. Had a
tooth belt.
A tooth belt. That's right, like a MakerBot.
Yeah.
So you actually won't get caught in your foot, and it's actually
It doesn't need greasing.
Has an automated little gearbox. Actually changes between shifts automatically.
Is it a metal belt?
No, it's plastic.
It's
rubber. Rubber.
It's like it's like nylon synthetic with
Yeah.
fibers through it, like in a car, basically.
So you still pedal, but there's some assistance.
Yeah, it's got a hub motor in the back wheel that basically gives it a couple of gears, like Norm said, a going uphill gear and a going fast gear. And if it detects that you're struggling, then the bike will automatically hit the gas for you. They have a lithium polymer battery pack up underneath the front of the thing that powers the motor. And then the rest of it's powered by a small battery that charges off a dynamo on the front wheel. So basically, the idea is that you get to work, even if you ride a long way and drain the battery on your ride to work, you take the battery pack out, plug it into when you're at your office or wherever, and it's ready to go by the time you get back to
And lots of
on the way
lights
home.
too.
Yeah.
Good. I mean, they designed it so the lights would make bicyclists look more like cars in
Oh,
terms
neat.
of like signal lighting and lighting on the sides.
It was a really neat bike. We also talked to some folks at Google. We saw Project Wing and Project Loon hardware in person, which was cool. Project Wing, I hadn't seen this before. But
So
there's
yeah,
videos
last
on
year
YouTube.
they announced Project Wing, which was their drone delivery system. So we're talking about actually automated aerial vehicles, and the idea, the problem with using traditional quadcopters, RC quadcopters, even automated ones like 3D robotics quadcopters for delivery, is that you have distance limitations. A lot of power required to power those multi-rotors.
2 or 3 miles, right?
And so they designed a VTOL device that is cheap, lightweight, and doesn't need to transform. VTOL meaning it can do vertical takeoff, which like any quadcopter can do. You have four rotors. It goes up, and then it actually looks, as it's flying up, the silhouette looks like a wing, looks like a stealth fighter, and then
It looks like a G.I. Joe toy, frankly.
yeah, and then it's made of styrofoam, and then when it gets to its appropriate altitude, it will then turn into a glider and propel forward,
It kind of just falls over
and then flies,
and swoops, and then
you're using
a fraction of the energy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When you say glider, it still has engines running, right?
it still has yeah.
Does it run all 4 still, or is it just
I
the
don't know
2?
if it runs all 4, but still uses the rotors.
Yeah, okay.
Because they're staggered, so you have the lift capability, the balanced lift capability. But once it's
they
once
turn
it
into
falls,
propellers.
then it turns into propellers, and
That's
you're getting
cool.
lift. And then they also have a deploy mechanism. So once the idea is it's for delivery for farmers, and so in one of their tests they talked about how they hovered above their deploy point, and then there's actually a package that has a small payload that it can actually drop down with twine, with rope,
Mm-hmm.
and the package has a sensor. The clamp on the package has a sensor to it. So once it detects that it's hit the ground, that motion triggers the releasing of the package, and then it just pulls that twine and the clamp back up
And flies away.
and flies back to you.
I love it.
It's really nifty. I think that if we're gonna get delivery systems using automated aerial vehicles, unmanned vehicles, or even remote control vehicles, if you think about delivery, you can't think about the flight system the same way you can a multi-rotor, the RC multi-rotors, with
Well, I mean-
the crosswing design.
And you just have to think about like power lines and stuff. Like there's power lines in front of all of our houses, right?
So yeah, altitude, very important.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to talk about. It's not going to be like 100 feet up in the air for delivery. They're flying pretty high up and then gliding into their destination. Of course, you have GPS and all that stuff.
I thought that was an interesting. Like I had never seen. I thought it was interesting that Google was out in big force. They brought, I think, Chris. We talked to Chris DeBona, who's head of making science at Google, and one of the early employees. And they brought 130,000 pairs of safety glasses
To Makerfaire.
and basically had just tubs and tubs of them and said, hey, take as many as you want. I think you saw a guy who's a science teacher and couldn't get glasses for his school kids literally come and get a garbage bag full of them. They were like, take more, take all you
kidding.
need.
Wow.
It was really cool. And then they also brought other stuff. So they had Project Loon, which is their mesh network, bringing internet to underdeveloped places or disaster zones. And it's basically a series of balloons that they release into the stratosphere, and then it beams internet down to the earth. And they had the actual payload, the smart part of the balloon there. So they kind of showed us how that worked, walked through that. They had some other stuff. They had one of their hard drive destroying robots, which I didn't realize was a thing. But when they retire hard drives from the Google cloud,
That's a great photo, Stephen Levy, when they toured their data centers, and it is just giant bins of Western Digital and Seagate
Dead hard drives.
Dead hard drives.
So this robot is one that normally grabs hard drives, plugs them in, does some data stuff, and then dumps them into a hard drive shredder. But they had repurposed it to do the thing from Aliens, where Bishop puts, I guess, Hudson's hand over his and does the knife thing.
Yeah.
So it was doing that with a dummy hand, in a very safe, controlled inside a box thing. But it was pretty awesome. So, see, anything else you want to talk about, Norm?
There's, we built a 3D LED cube, the Hypno Cube,
Oh, right, I
as
forgot
a
about this
tested
one.
premium as a video series a few months ago. It was a really fun project, but it was a 4x4x4 cube, and this is something you might appreciate, Jeremy. The imagery you can get as you talk about low resolution displays. And
Yours was RGB, right?
it was RGB LEDs.
That's cool.
And it's really cool. And one of the cool things about the HypnoCube is that the LEDs, they look like they're floating because we did all the soldering ourselves. They're not housed in anything. They're really just connected by the wires, the signal wires and the ground wire and power, signal and ground. So a company, and it was kind of expensive because we're talking about 4x4x4, which is 64 LEDs. But to move up to the next step, we're talking about multiplying that by
256 LEDs, right? It's 4 times as many.
More than 8 times.
Oh no,
as
it's
many.
8 times as many.
8 times as many.
So it's 1,024.
Yeah, so
That's
a lot of soldering. So a company called Looking Glass actually has a 8x8 LED
Kit?
but they sell completed. It is a kit actually, and their innovation is that
They were there?
they were there.
I have one of these on order.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, so
Hey,
you
Jeremy.
know how this works.
Do you need help building?
Well, it's only 30 minutes to build.
It's an easy build.
Oh,
the,
it's
the
like
reason
snap-in?
it's easy build because their innovation is that all their LEDs are on pylons, and so you have 8 LEDs to a stick on a pylon, and they put all the control. They're not. It's not a unified control board. There's logic on each of the pylons, and you stick the pylon onto the platform, and then they talk to each other.
Can they be different length pylons?
Well, the kit they sell is only one of the kits they sell. The primary kit is only 8 to a pylon, and they do sell a 16 by 16 by 16. But a lot of that has to do with software. So, two interesting things.
They're just to be clear, there's surface mount
mounts.
LEDs.
Yeah.
So this is
So
the limitation.
I assume from one angle it doesn't look that great.
It actually
Only
looks pretty good.
Great. No, it doesn't look good. You can't see from the back.
Well,
Yeah.
what happens is the LEDs behind light the ones like the bars in front of them, so you have this weird Hall of Mirrors thing going,
Is that
even though
right?
there's no mirrors. I didn't find it. It's not great. I didn't find it
Yeah.
objectionable.
It's a different aesthetic than the one
Yes,
you
I
built.
will just say, to be fair, it's a different aesthetic where, as a Hypno Cube, it literally has a cool Hall of Mirrors effect where if you put mirrors around
Yeah.
the sides of the Hypno Cube, because LEDs are unshielded and unprotected,
Yeah.
you get an infinite display. This one, from at least one side, the back of that pylon, because they're surface mounted, you don't see the lights. But it is very similar to if you go to like the recent Apple Store displays, even they have those wall LEDs.
Yeah.
It's a lot like that.
I
So-
imagine, but they're brighter than
They're
the,
brighter. They're really bright.
Yeah.
The animations, and they built the thing because they're a startup, so they have the resources to. It's not just a single guy to build a website where people can design animations and then download it, so you can play it back.
That's cool.
So interestingly, we were at a place yesterday that I can't talk about, but they had a set design set up that
about
had.
it.
Can we talk about that?
I mean, people are going tomorrow
Oh,
to see it.
I thought we were
Well,
supposed to...
it's next on the list.
Oh, okay. I thought we weren't supposed to talk about it until
some-
next week or
There's
the week
some
after.
stuff that we can't talk about.
Okay.
Um,
So
let's be careful. about
Okay.
what we can't and can't talk
so
about.
we'll just say that we were
Yeah.
at...
We were at where Battlebots is filming this week. There's no secret that Battlebots
It is a
filming.
new Battlebots. It's run by just full disclosure, it's run by the production company that owns Tested. And we went over there yesterday to shoot some behind the scenes stuff and
Yes.
talk to some of the people who've made the robots, and that stuff will all be on the site
Yeah.
in coming weeks. But on the set, they had very similar design to those things around the bottom edge of the arena, and you would see they had thousands of them, millions of them probably, and they were all illuminated and kind of like they were running patterns on them and all sorts of stuff like that. It was very cool. But I saw that and I was like, oh, this is a thing that already exists that these guys are just making work smarter for small scale stuff.
The Looking Glass stuff, I think, they can commercialize it, and you can be okay with that technical limitation of it only illuminating from one side. I think that's it's a design choice.
To be practical, you guys were pretty burned out after soldering together the 4x4x4.
Right, but they
It was
also
hard.
right,
But this would be, as you said, 8 times the work.
It was hard because
Right.
of the wire that they used, though. They used stainless wire that's really hard to solder.
and
to.
also Hypnocube they have manufacturing in China where they sell completed kit. You have no solder
Right.
for 4x4.
Yeah.
So it is just a design difference. But Looking Glass is interesting because they were not a LED display company. They started off doing those like Lucite 3D images and Lucite things that were
like the laser cut ones?
kind of like that. And their interest, which makes total sense, is volumetric imaging.
Yeah.
And so in chatting with their CTO, the idea behind this product is that they will hopefully eventually scale up to an idea where, like, what is the lowest resolution? What is the floor for a resolution in 3D imaging where you can actually
Gotcha.
start displaying recognizable images, faces, and communication? Which, from your perspective, I'm talking about low resolution 2D imaging with the
Yeah.
game frame. That's something that may be interesting to you.
So
Totally.
So I one of the things that was interesting to me about that I noticed immediately about the Looking Glass stuff is that their animations by default are much better, I thought, than the Hypnocube ones.
They are.
It may be that you and Adam are running a weird loop or not the best stuff.
It's
but
because they also have
They had a
8
bunch of
times number
people.
of pixels.
Yeah.
It's literally because they have 8 times number of pixels.
Yeah, but so they were doing things like there was a worm that kind of crawled
Yeah.
through the whole thing in 3-dimensional space. It was really, really neat stuff. I would love to see that design, that software on the Hypnocube design where you have the full 360-degree thing. But they also had done good stuff with mirrors on all sides of it. It was neat. It was a neat project all around.
Oh, yeah, they're supposed to start shipping next month. I'm excited to get mine.
How much
were
was it? Do you remember how much it was?
expensive.
Oh, I thought it was really affordable. I mean, considering it was 8 times
Right.
twice the resolution in every direction. It was like $300 or so.
$300 for
sorry,
Kickstarter,
The-
$350
The
for
16X one, that was over 1,000. That was a serious
I think you
investment.
sent me the link when I
Right.
started. You're like, you should invest in the 16 by 16. And I'll say they had one of the 16s. I think the way they're displaying
voxels.
there's a diminishing returns,
Yeah.
and because of they didn't devote as much time to animating the 16 by 16 to 16.
Less demand.
You have the animations on the 8 by 8 by 8 were much better.
I
than the
also
16 by
I think the
16.
dead space on the boards because they're using boards not wires, so there's more negatives. It's kind of equivalent to the screen doors on an LCD display,
They have
right?
less negative space.
They have more blocked. There's more space blocked from one layer to the next. So when you get to the 16 by 16, it's actually I don't think you can see very many of the pixels way in the back.
Huh.
Because just unless you're right at the right angle.
Yeah.
Anyway, we don't have a ton of time today, so we should move on.
Trying to okay,
Pinagogo?
we have a ton of Makerfaire videos coming up this week and beginning of next, so please check those out.
Yeah.
Just a lot of cool stuff, and if you can make it to your own local Maker Fair, please do. They're great.
So there's 2 or 3 big maker fairs that are official. There's a ton of like community driven mini maker fairs is what they call them, and they happen in most big cities around the country and even around the world now. And they're all fun. I've been to the mini maker fair in Oakland and Portland, and both were really good. Highly recommend them.
Pinagogo was a ton of fun. It's not much to report on. I mean, everyone who knows about pinball in Northern California knows about it already and probably was there.
Is it Alameda?
It's in Dixon.
And
it's the longest running pinball show west of the Mississippi.
I like that.
That's real good.
You know where Dixon is, Will?
No, I have no idea.
It's where we went to try out for the Amazing Race.
Oh,
No kidding.
I try not to think about Dixon
It's
anymore.
near Sacramento.
No, we went to.
Dixon.
It's not near Sacramento.
Well, Dixon is. I don't know what you're talking about.
We went to where our old publisher lived, Fremont or Free something. It was a really
Bay.
ritzy neighborhood. Yeah.
Anyway, it was a big charity event, benefited the children of Dixon, and the
Okay.
tournament benefited the Pacific Pinball Museum.
Nice.
And
That's in
Which
Alameda.
is in Alameda.
that's in
Okay.
Alameda. So yeah, just hundreds of games on free play. If you missed it this year, try it next year.
It's
Did you
it's like
see-
CAX.
It's like
California
that, but
Extreme.
only pinball.
Okay.
So you don't have the blip and beep of the arcade games.
California Extreme has some pinball too.
No, they
usually,
do
right?
absolutely,
Okay.
but you can't hear anything there.
Yeah.
And there's a
loud.
lot of arcade kids
Feels
there.
like a big, massive arcade. Did you see any play fields?
Yeah, I looked for you. Apparently there were some, but I missed them. Like they were hidden in trucks. The ones that were on display, they were a little too beat up. I know you want
I want a good one.
What are you
one
looking
on a
for,
wall.
Norm?
I don't know. I'm looking for. I've been.
You're
I have
open.
an eBay search and nothing's
yeah.
caught my eye yet.
Yeah. Sorry,
Okay.
I looked out for you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
So
Wow.
Norm and I went to BattleBots yesterday.
Yeah, we can't say too much about it because I know they want to save some stuff for this. We did shoot interviews with the teams and
All of
you
the
know,
teams.
Well, all the teams. We
Yeah.
went to. We've been to previous. BattleBots has been on TV for about a decade.
It hasn't been on
Has
TV
not
for
been
about
on
12
TV
years. Yeah.
for over a decade, and there are tiny robot combat leagues have popped up around the country. We've been to the Robo games on the Combots guys,
Mm-hmm.
and I know some of those guys. And my expectations, because having never seen BattleBots in person, and only remember it through the lens of television, the combat stuff was fantastic. The BattleBots competitors that have come for this have traveled all around the world for this competition. These robots are a whole other level.
Really?
Yeah, these are people.
Whole other level.
A lot of the people. So I know that the production time on this was relatively short. So they kind of went out to people who'd built robots before, had expertise, and asked them to come and do fun stuff, have fun. And the teams on it's a mix of old and new teams. People you may remember from before, people you've seen at other robot fighting stuff, and then newcomers like smart kids from MIT and Caltech and stuff like that. And there's a ton of ingenuity on display. So we have videos. We'll have videos with the makers that kind of talk about their bots and how they work.
Just the quality of fabrication and the materials they use, titanium, different types of steel, aluminum, all that water jet machining stuff on how fast they can build these robots is incredible. And I don't know if they'll be able to will hear those stories, when the show airs.
I imagine that there's a certain there's new the technologies needed to make these robots are now more accessible.
Yeah.
That was the big takeaway from
Design,
yesterday.
fabrication, and
technology. Like
so
batteries, voltage or regulators, speed controllers, the radios, the stuff that you can do with the radios, and then the reliability of the software on the devices.
Oh, wow.
Like,
So-
people didn't seem to be using microcontrollers because I think everything has to be remote controlled. But they were definitely like the switch from lead acid to lipo basically is letting everybody bring a ton more power to the point that like some of these guys are like, I haven't ever turned this thing up full blast. Like I haven't turned this robot up to see how much damage the weapon can do. But we looked at the arena and they have like the massive Lexan walls. And then there's some other stuff that I think we're not supposed to talk about.
it's like more readily available technology.
Yeah.
Design's easier. The
robot-
workshops
the motors are better.
around. Yep. You'll just have to watch the videos as they come out, but really cool stuff. And if you're in the Bay Area this weekend, I think tickets might still be on sale to watch a screening on Friday at least.
I think Friday's sold out. Thursday and Saturday are both available, I think, still. It's on Eventbrite. If you go to Eventbrite and search for BattleBots, it's the only thing that comes up. So
I'd be interested to see an autonomous robot war.
I think that's next, right? That's how it all ends.
Right. That's how it ends.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that, and it would be cool. In robo games, there are some autonomous, mini autonomous competitions. I think the human remote control driving and having a good pilot, really, human element is so crucial.
It's probably
to
better
that.
TV anyway.
I mean, I think also for better competition because you can build the best robot, but if you can't, and if you can't build the design that you can pilot and that you've practiced with, that's when the moment that's when you have the spur of the moment changes.
So
and there's teamwork involved.
Yeah, there's multiple pilots on many of the things. So
that's
one
interesting.
person will drive the bot, and the other person is in charge of the weapon, or other breakdowns of the way it works. The big thing that I took away from talking to all these folks yesterday is that I watched the first 2 or 3 seasons of BattleBots religiously. Absolutely loved it. I loved seeing the designs and seeing how people adapted their designs. Like that first season, people came in, and I think a lot of people had no idea what was going to happen and how their robots were going to hold up and what their strategy was going to. Their strategy changed dramatically after that first point of impact. And I so much has changed in the 10 or 12 years since the last big wave of BattleBots. I feel like we're going to see a lot of that again this time, because the amount of power going into these robots is astounding.
Yeah.
And there's some other surprises that, like I said, we can't talk about yet. So that's it. Today's the listener's choice episode. Last night about 10 o'clock on Twitter, I asked people to jump into this Google document and type things, which they did. I'm just going to go down the list. We're going to hit some of these. They're going to be real fast. Some of them are going to be, some of them we can talk about. And they're no particular order here. So Google's unveiling a photo service at I/O.
This is a rumor.
It's not going to be tied to Google+. Presumably, they're taking the only good part of Google+, which was the photo service, and pulling that out and making it a standalone thing.
Hangouts isn't bad.
Hangouts are okay.
Hangouts, in my mind, Hangouts are built into Gmail.
Yeah, Hangouts are still
the
Google
Gmail
Chat.
Is that right?
Yeah.
GChat, and then and Photos absolutely is my favorite part of Google+.
I use Photos on Google+. It's great.
It's great backup, and the cool thing I do is, you can do it on your iPhone as well. Is if you take fast images, hold down the shutter and take rapid images, and all of those get pumped up to Google Plus Photos.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It automatically creates an animated GIF.
Yeah.
You mean GIF?
Yep.
There's Apple Watch and Android Wear updates this week. The Apple Watch update, I haven't actually installed it yet because I want to do some timing stuff.
Oh, I did it right away.
Does it make your apps faster?
I had a moment where I was like, maybe I shouldn't, because this has crashed people in the past, iPhone updates. But I did it.
Yeah.
No problem. I haven't noticed any difference, to be honest with you. But my battery lasted less yesterday. Every day I've been at like 70 or 80%. Yesterday I was at about 60.
So I'm gonna stopwatch the same app before and after the update and see if there's any appreciable difference.
Yeah.
People reporting really mixed stuff. What's new in the Android Wear update? Do you have a watch that does it yet, Norm?
No. So the new Android Wear update primarily incorporates Wi-Fi, activates Wi-Fi chips on some of the Android Wear watches. My Asus Zen watch does not have the Wi-Fi chip, and this just gives you the tethering. We've talked about this update before.
Oh, so you don't have Wi-Fi on yours?
I do not have Wi-Fi.
Oh, that sucks.
It's only Bluetooth over the phone for data updates.
Is it time for the VR Minute?
It's going to be more than a minute this week.
All right, let's do it. Oh, I'm getting ready for this. Putting on those HMDs.
You're talking over the song, Norm. So that theme was sent in by Hank. Thanks,
I
Hank,
like
for the theme.
Well
I like
done,
the
Hank.
theme, but I also like talking over the theme because the theme is like the pump up music.
It's getting you psyched for VR,
Yes.
for the VR
So
Minute?
I can riff
Okay,
during the theme.
Here's what we-
get it. Riff.
I'm going to riff you. Oculus scheduled a press conference for June 11th.
That's not the big announcement.
That is not the big announcement.
The big stuff is information about CV1.
What was
Last
the information
Friday.
about CV1, Norm?
Minimum system requirements for the Oculus Rift.
Do you believe in minimum system requirements that are 12 months out for a product?
Yes, because I know that they'll only get the optimizations will come from both sides, both on the VR side and on the graphics card side.
So would you go buy a new machine now for your Oculus
No.
that you're going to buy in 2016?
No, but I know a lot of people who do already have machines, and what they will do is that it'll either like people who have, for example, already have a 970.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing about the release of minimum system requirements for the full Oculus Rift experience, how they're defining
Best
it,
experience.
the full.
Okay.
I'm sure that some games will be.
These are the recommended system.
recommended.
You've
system
been saying
requirements.
minimum.
Sure, recommended
Min
for the
spec
full.
and recommended are two different
It
things.
informs us two things. And for people who already have, for example, a GTX 970, they can rest well. They know they don't need to buy the 980 or a Titan X, and they can plan their upgrade cycles accordingly, which is good.
What if I have a 780 Ti?
Then you might want to wait till next year and see what's out next year. I would
Okay.
not go out and buy a 970 right now and think that's the best because, like I said,
I mean-
Oculus will get better, and the graphics cards and drivers will get better.
And cheaper.
Presumably, Nvidia is going to continue releasing video cards throughout the year, and maybe you're better off spending that money in December when the card's brand new,
Exactly.
or March of next year, even.
But it lets you know where you stand right now.
Buy hardware when you need it.
And it also lets you know, lets the user know what Oculus is targeting, because they did expound in detail about the amount of pixel requirements. So the other
Like pixel fill rate requirements.
rate
Okay.
requirements. The other and pixel shader requirements.
Which, I mean, if you're talking about pixel fill rate, did they give you a resolution?
They did give resolution, but I want to say one other thing. The other thing that the recommended specs informs us about is also some interesting things like the Oculus is going to require 2 USB 3.0 ports and HDMI 1.3, which tells you a resolution potential limit. If that means less now because we know the actual resolution.
2 USB 3?
2 USB 3.0
Dude, that's going to
ports.
be a problem. Don't you
That's
think?
why they said that no current laptop will run these
Yeah.
full specs.
Wow.
And
USB, I bet it's more about power I bet it's as much about power as it is about data. Because what on earth are they using all that data for? It still has an HDMI port, right? Or is it doing video over USB?
It's HDMI 1.3.
Yeah.
So
That's
not
crazy.
HDMI 2.0, not DisplayPort.
Oh, it's
8 gigs of RAM.
One port for the camera, one port for the headset, I'm sure.
Yeah, it is. It is currently.
Yeah.
Yep.
But they're USB 2 right now.
Right.
So that tells you 3.0. That could be something interesting with the way they're doing
Well-
positional tracking.
No, I mean, here's the other thing. If 3.0, there's different power specs. So they could be powering the headset and the camera off of USB 3. That's my guess.
That would, yes.
Because the data that comes from the data that comes from the headset is just strings of numbers. It's not like they need
Right.
gigabits of data a second to do that. The
And even the
camera may be a
video.
little bit more, but I think it's probably more about power and latency.
And fewer cables, I think, is their goal.
Yeah.
Right, we're talking about then potentially only 2 cables needed for the headset, 1 cable needed for the camera. I think that's good speculation.
Yeah.
But in follow-up blog posts, they then talk about why these recommended system specs were needed, and they did reveal that, as many people speculated, and unfortunately we were wrong about this. I was wrong about this. Crescent Bay prototype and the consumer Rift it's actually running 2 displays. It's very similar to the HTC Vive.
The Vive?
What
That's
Steam VR is doing.
That's interesting. So are they 2 vertical displays? Is that the
2
idea?
portrait displays.
They did
They
announce
didn't
this.
say portrait, but
They-
they did say
2 displays.
the resolution, which
No,
is-
but they did.
I
They
mean,
said
they
it was
could-
2 displays
two-
after.
right. They did say 2 display, but now we know it's the same resolution as
Vive.
the HTC Vive.
Oh, it's the same resolution.
Same resolution.
I mean, here's the thing. The takeaway from all this is that the same thing that we had after the Vive demo. I think resolution matters much less than we initially thought. I think it's more about the latency and giving you some sort of hand control.
Well, the resolution does matter in the sense that we know how we don't want wasted pixels. We
Right.
don't waste the pixels, and there's a point of comparison with the Gear VR stuff. So Oculus now has 2 tracks of optical development. You have optics designed specifically for single screen
For phones.
uses for phones, which is for mobile, which is a big deal, and also optics designed for like the HTC Vive, two screens in portrait, presumably portrait orientation. With that resolution, they talk about the pixel fill, or the fill rate. It's going to require approximately 3 times the computational power of a 1080p 60, because you're talking about that increased resolution running at 90 hertz minimum.
Yeah.
Palmer did tweet and say that he's super confident. He tweeted a lot of confidence about these displays. They're cutting edge, high pixel fill, so reduced screen door effect, but of course their optics diffuse that anyway. Fast refresh, the lowest latency, and that's something we'll presumably see, as you were alluding to.
June 11th.
June
I didn't
11th.
allude to it. I just said there's a press conference on June 11th.
Well, we don't know that we'll actually see.
I'm sure they'll show something.
They'll show, hopefully.
It's the week before E3, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So TechCrunch reported that press received invite for a June 11th press conference, while not officially confirmed by Oculus. The image looked reliable.
Seems pretty good.
Seems pretty
like good info.
to me. The timing seems
What was on
good.
what was on the invite that TechCrunch posted?
They said.
Is it like an Apple thing? Is there a pun?
enter the Rift or something like that? I I forget. There was some tagline that was also an allusion to their Kickstarter tagline.
Step into the rift.
Step into the rift. They said "Step into the game" was their Kickstarter tagline. It's the same render as what they released when they showed CV1, but 6/11 in San Francisco, and a good thing we're in San Francisco, guys.
Cool.
If it happens, wink, wink. They're also presumably going to be at E3, so I think they're really ramping up. The timing seems right to show consumer version hardware now, since the Crescent Bay was last September, and that was by that,
it was 6 months old when you saw it
already
first.
6 months
yeah.
old, and to get developers on board, they need to show that positional tracking system. We still don't know.
I think. I mean. I feel like the takeaway of all that was, hey, we changed the way positional tracking works, so we need to get that out for developers. I feel like once they have the camera and the IR stuff on the headset, probably their hardware complete or close to it.
Input. What's the input?
With minus input, yeah. Input's the big question. So that's the Oculus update. You talked to Alan Yates.
Let's go with
you want to do it in order?
Less. Yeah. Fove did their Kickstarter finally.
What's Fove, Norm?
Was it a Kickstarter?
Was it not a Kickstarter?
I don't know, maybe it is, but it's a new headset that has eye tracking.
Yeah, so I did a demo of this at GDC, way back in GDC, and they said back then they were going to
Did you really?
They were going to do Kickstarter soon, but when the embargo lifted for a video, the Kickstarter was nowhere to be seen. So I think what they did launch this week is that Kickstarter. I'm not even going to say long awaited, because I don't think, based on my impressions of it, the eye tracking is such a difficult thing to do.
You're right. Kickstarter.
Yeah, it's a Kickstarter, and they've raised $193,000 right now of their $250,000 goal.
44 days to go.
Yeah, I mean, I think they'll reach their goal. I think that it's
like today.
The interesting things with this is more on the development side and what developers can do with eye tracking. I think the foveated rendering stuff, we're so far away from that being doable. That John Carmack...
or necessary. The problem is if we don't have a high enough resolution display to warrant that kind of...
But extra frame rates, I mean...
I know you'll be able to increase the frame rate, but the whole... Like, Carmack's idea is that screen resolution will increase faster than we can keep up with.
Right.
We're not there yet. Now, I know that we're sort of on the cusp of it, but I think we can pretty much keep up with current resolution technology.
With more graphics cards.
Once there is resolutions beyond which we can keep up with from a computational standpoint, we'll need to throw more rendering power at where you're focusing your eye.
Right.
But I just don't think we're there yet.
But I mean, that's the thing we're already doing on console games. Like that is a thing they've been doing for decades on console games, starting with fog, and then the simplest way was to render just the stuff in a 10-foot circle around you, and then fog out the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And then in the last generation, they added the depth shaders, the depth of field shaders, so that you have everything that's not in the plane that you're looking at is a little bit hazy, and that means that they can tessellate down models, and it's much easier to render. So like, there's no reason they can't do that based on a circle around the center of your eye. The problem is they don't track your eyes.
The Fove tracks your eyes, but the actual problem is that the way your eye moves and the way your eye scans is so fast that even with the fastest and most accurate eye tracking, the latency... And constant.
Yeah.
The way your eye moves, it's the demos they've shown. Foveated even as a concept, even the dynamic rendering of sharpness for a certain area where you're looking at specifically, that is so far away. It's a leaps and bounds challenge.
You're talking about just the latency, because like doing the math on the eye tracking takes milliseconds, and if you're talking about a 6 millisecond frame, which is I think what Oculus is targeting,
and you have to do prediction, and your eye, that's something that you have to get perfect, or your eye will immediately notice it. And people's biologies are different. The way people interpret scenes are different. VR.
We just got head tracking working.
Yes.
I don't think it's. Here's the thing. It's a problem somebody hasn't spent massive amounts of time on yet, right? Because the people who are doing eye tracking currently are doing it for like marketing research and accessibility utilities and stuff like that. So they don't care about latency. This is a situation where if you put John Carmack and Mike Abrash and super smart big brains on it, then like they will figure it out, and there's ways to optimize code and all that stuff. It's like anything else.
But at the UT Austin talk, Carmack, I mean, you can throw money and research into something, but the smart people like John Carmack can already, before they enter a problem, they know whether it's gonna work based on how much time they put in. And he thinks that he expressed that this is a problem that's so difficult that it's not even worth the time right now to research it. There's so many other problems to solve.
Well, that's true.
And that this is like years and decades ahead. It's not like you can right now throw.
And I mean, you could cheat it just by fixing the center of the FOV on a pair of goggles. Because the thing is, you put goggles on, and 30 seconds in, you're not turning your eyes; you turn your whole head to look, because you immediately adapt to, oh, I have a fairly fixed. I'm looking through the dive mask, and I have to turn my head to see things. I don't move my eyes.
I think the better way to maximize rendering on an HMD in terms of optimizing for your field of view and what you're focusing on is less about tracking your eyes and doing it dynamically that way, and more on the developer side, which is just like what developers have been doing for games for the past decade, and designing games and designing their engines so that they know they can anticipate when people are looking down a barrel of a gun, or anticipate when they're looking at text on a screen, and design their software around that, and then optimize the rendering for that, because there's only so much you can do in a game. I think eye tracking is interesting for gameplay. When we're talking about how you can affect interaction in virtual reality,
especially person-to-person interaction,
avatar-to-avatar interaction, human to AI interaction, triggering.
That's the most interesting thing about this product right now.
Yeah.
I think.
But like eye tracking outside of HMDs, eye tracking, which right now is, the SteelSeries sells an eye tracker.
It's $300. Yeah.
Was it Moby?
Tobii.
Tobii
II.
has had an eye tracker. They have had so much trouble getting developers on board just to implement eye tracking effectively in a game.
Well, that's a completely different thing.
Well, that's why I think that FOV is difficult as well. If they, let's say, market research says by 2016, 5 million virtual reality headsets will ship. FOV gets a tiny, tiny fraction of that. Game developers are not going to spend resources
it goes
to
without
implement
saying.
that. So
I imagine they're hoping for a buyout. That they're hoping Oculus would be willing to give
or
them,
Valve or someone.
Yeah, right, somebody.
So my bet, don't back this Kickstarter now unless you're a developer that really wants to experiment with eye tracking.
Okay, we're real short on time, so we got to go.
Alan Yates.
Yeah, you have a long video up on the site. I would encourage people to just watch the video. Alan is one of the guys who came up with, who designed the Lighthouse beacon technology at Valve
For Steam VR.
For Steam VR.
Positional tracking. This is the secret sauce that I think really differentiated their VR solution to anything we've seen before, because it allows not only for a standing interactive VR experience, but tracking highly precise tracking of controllers,
bunch
and
of
headset,
multiple
and things
objects
in relation to each other as well, not just in relation to a single camera in the room. Lots of cool insights from that. My biggest takeaway was that how easy it would be potentially to develop peripherals to have optical sensors that could move in Lighthouse, so you can just if you were designing a keyboard, designing a mouse that you want to be tracked in that real world, or any other physical object that you want to put optical photodiodes on, you could just 3D scan it, basically draw a wireframe to get its shape, throw that STL into their software, which they're hoping to release, and they'll tell you the best places to put the diodes so that it can track orientation.
He also told you how they are currently scanning environments, or manually scanning environments.
Yes.
So you move your controller to tell it where the walls are, where your furniture is, which was an assumption we made.
Chet said the same thing when we
did he
saw
tell
it.
you that?
I don't know if we were supposed to talk about it. But
Okay.
Sorry, Chet.
And then some other interesting things about like why you need two Lighthouse systems. It's really redundancy right now. You can scale up more. The way they talk to each other will different. That's what he meant by the tweet about.
But you can't
there
get
being 5
positional
modes.
with a single one.
Yes,
as long
you
as you
can.
don't turn around.
Yeah, and that the fact that the IMU actually helps compensate, which is like we've talked about this. There's so many different technologies. The cheap inertial motion unit that basically is the foundation
on a chip
for HMDs and virtual reality. You can abstract a lot of information. No single one technology is what's going to make VR and positional tracking magical.
Yeah.
You abstract it through skeletal modeling, through IMU tracking, and all the different data points. It's all about how those things fill in for each other as obstruction, as interference, and range become limiting factors.
Oculus calls it sensor fusion.
Sensor fusion. That is what will create convincing VR.
Yeah. He also talked a little bit about the dream of having everything wireless and being able to put beacons throughout an office or an entire space so that you can walk through a virtual world while you're in the real world.
Yeah,
also-
like leave your office, go down the hall, never take your goggles off.
Or give quadcopters a sense of exactly where they are
Yeah.
in any space.
Yeah, think about this. If you're going to be like the futurist, imagine where these beacons, this type of sensor technology, is everywhere, not just for VR.
Yeah.
But if everything, and if you can hide the receptors in everyday objects, having pinpoint orientation and tracking. Like right now, GPS tells me my phone is within 5-meter circle. The most accurate, even optical tracking technology with like home security and stuff, gives you kind of like general location.
It's like a heat map.
Yeah, but you don't get orientation. You don't get actual spatial awareness. Spatial awareness of Internet of Things is something that can potentially change the world.
Yeah.
Like pinpoint location and
Well, or even
not
think
just
about
finding
like
things.
robo surgery and stuff like that. Like if you're talking about a situation where all of a sudden the robot hands are not just controlled by the Waldos, but you also have, you know, the 3D position of the tools that the robot's using and all that, then you can do telesurgery and stuff like that.
think about the quadcopters right now use IMUs and gyros and GPS
And cameras.
and cameras for a lot of their stabilization
Yeah.
and tracking. That is the equivalent of the dumbest HMD right now
Yeah.
in terms of tracking, how accurate it is. If you give that pinpoint millimeter low latency, almost no latency orientation tracking on any autonomous or any moving object, the potential for that is that's where you get the swarm.
Exactly. That's what
Yeah.
they're doing. Like where we see those internet videos where they're inside a cage and they're doing these acrobatic, coordinated.
And that's sensor fusion right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're then also talking to each other. And they know the relationship to each other. And like Alan said, the computation for trilateration is not intensive.
Did he talk about putting sensors on gloves and stuff
He
like
did.
that?
He said that gloves, I mean, I asked about rigid shapes, and gloves, he said, is a tough problem because of fingers are naturally obscure each other. So even if you had like
Fingertips
not
or
gloves,
something?
just
Like
fingertips
thimbles?
or you know, finger modules, it's not something. They would need more information than that.
I
So
thought it
you'd
was-
have to.
sorry, go ahead.
Oh no.
No, go ahead. I was going to move on.
I was just gonna. Oh, that's fine. Let's move on.
I thought it was interesting how the fan worked. He talked about how the lasers work. That it's a fan of lasers that cross each other, rather than like single beams going out in different directions. That was just interesting to me.
I had a
had pictured
limitation
the
for
thing-
range.
I had no limitation for
No,
range.
the limitation for range isn't the lasers.
Yeah, it's the syncing.
Yeah.
pulse. So there's an LED in there for syncing.
It's like a big array of LEDs, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And then there's the big laser beam, which can go meters and meters and meters.
Yeah, I mean, I would think the laser beam should be able to go a very long way. The question is,
It's about 40 meters for that and 5 meters for this, just because of the syncing lights, which you can scale. You can like make trade-offs. You know, more power. Trade response time. Trade refresh rate.
Well, the
for
thing
how many
about
times you're tracking.
it's IR LEDs. Is that what they're using?
I believe for the syncing lights.
So, I mean, the problem with IR LEDs is if you crank them up too hot, they start looking red, and people can see them, and then they get creeped out. I think that's the end of the VR minute, unless you have anything else. We've got a
interview.
bunch of stuff to go through. Yeah, it was really good. I loved that they had all the prototypes, like from the original like boards that were just like breadboarded and etched in their office clearly, all the way up to like the little tiny modern ones. It's
They're
really
makers
cool.
too, dude.
No, I know they've been making stuff for a long
They
time.
just
up there.
make a lot more money than most makers.
Not Half-Life. You know what
They're
they're not
makers of
making?
money.
Yeah, we'll see. Google had a really cool video that you posted on the site the other day that was SIGGRAPH happened or is about to happen. I'm not sure which.
It's from a past SIGGRAPH.
Oh,
This
really?
past SIGGRAPH
It was
already happened.
2015.
But
yeah, it was in
already
March or
happened.
April or something, right?
Google worked with, I believe, University of Washington. They're always experimenting with what they can do with data. And in this instance, the data set they're talking about is imagery, photos. And so they scraped 84 million photos.
As one does.
From their databases, publicly available photos, and found that, like as expected, a lot of people take photos in the same, not only of the same things, but from the same spots. And then did some warping, color correction, and alignment, temporal alignment of these photos to create videos, time lapses. So without having a mounted time-lapse camera looking at the construction of the Bay Bridge, for example, over 10 years, you can just pull photos, and it looks like a seamless time-lapse video.
Now, when you describe that, it sounds to me like there's going to be an interesting time lapse that lasts, over the course of 10 years, but it's going to be jumpy.
Yeah.
The cool thing about their technology is they found a way to use some sort of computer synthesis to smooth it out.
To blend it,
Yeah.
yes. To blend not only the orientation, so like it's a lot of like this warping that happens.
So they
perspective warping.
like lens correct for all the different lenses that the cameras have.
It looks
Well,
like a
just-
lockdown shot. I mean, it
You're
looks
right.
Yeah.
exactly locked
They're
down.
tilt corrections. So this is just like Photoshop tilt. You can even do it on Instagram, like just making
Crop,
trapezoidal,
yeah.
not just cropping and rotation, but positional warping.
It's the upshot. You should watch the video. It's amazing. There's the video of the skyscraper growing over like 18 months or whatever it was. It literally looks like somebody took a camera, put it on a pole,
Yeah.
and took one shot a day for however long it was.
And it's an automated process as long as developing algorithms. And it's just an example of uses of big data. People
Right.
think of that as privacy violations, but interesting visualizations of data. What we can do as we move into and past the petabyte age.
Very cool.
What's the petabyte age, Norm?
We're talking about.
Have you been reading
Yes.
Wired again?
This was like 3 years ago.
Oh.
We're well into that.
Oh, I thought I was still in the terabyte age.
No, well, personal terabyte age. No personal petabytes just yet.
Somebody wrote KFC Tray Typer here.
I don't know.
I don't know what this is. I saw a picture of this.
Did you see this?
And it looked like a tray that has a keyboard that you plug into your phone. So when you're eating at KFC, you can type to people.
Bluetooth, dude. So,
Oh.
so in Germany, KFC did this promotion where they had on their trays, if you eat at the restaurant, you get a little nice
yeah.
people do. You get a nice little piece of paper down there to protect the tray. Well, that paper had a keyboard built into it.
Wait, what?
Yeah, so you put your phone down somewhere, and rather than eating your Kentucky Fried Chicken and touching your phone and getting it all greasy,
Because it's finger looking good.
you reach down, you hit the sync button,
Okay.
and then you can type on the tray.
And they'll clean it for you afterward.
Well, they would if anybody left them.
People are just stealing them?
Every one of them got stolen.
Oh.
Is it paper?
This is why we can't have nice
you
things.
Right? It's
How do you charge it?
I bet it's
It's a thin pad.
yeah, it's some sort of thin pad. I mean, it's not paper, but it's a thin
Wow.
circuit
Does it
board.
roll up or something?
Who knows?
I want to know more about this.
I do
They
too.
should get leftover Microsoft touch keyboards.
They
from
got enough press.
Surface Ones.
And they're
Yeah.
spinning the theft
Just what people
into
want.
a success because that to them they're interpreting that as these
This
people
is,
want.
No, this is Germany, right?
Yeah.
So in Germany, everyone's a hacker. You know that.
I didn't know.
Everyone's
that.
a
Yeah,
maker.
it's
Everyone's a
where
programmer.
Spiel de Jahr or whatever
Yeah,
it is. Though that's the board game
it-
thing. It's what's the hacker magazine? SO. Anyway, it's
That's
I'm
a prized possession.
I can't imagine going into a KFC and sitting down to eat food there.
That's more of you take it
You
home.
know, that's.
Yeah.
I'm not going to make any judgment.
No. I'm not judging. I'm just saying I can't remember the last time I sat down and it's starting probably going to come back soon because I have a kid and we don't eating in the car with a 3-year-old is a mistake. But like even on road trips, we don't. Maybe somebody runs in to go to the bathroom or something. But there's never like a leisurely meal at the old KFC.
Maybe they recognize this, and this is an incentive to go to
possible.
visit the restaurant.
It's much cooler than emoji pizza ordering.
So the next Pixar film, Inside Out, premiered at Cannes.
Which you guys are a little skeptical about.
I was
Will
skeptical about it.
I think the first trailer, I was worried.
I thought it was a bad trailer.
So this is Pete Docter's new film,
Yes.
the director of Monsters Inc.
Finding Nemo.
And no,
that's
Stanton's.
Okay.
And Up.
I like both of those movies.
Great movies. I think he's the most consistent of the directors, having made only 2 films. Everyone else has made 2 films, but in my opinion, they have not been as both
Jeremy Williams.
pitch perfect as Monsters Inc. and Up.
Brad Bird
You'll find
disagrees strongly.
You'll
I do.
find no stronger Pixar
Ratat-
advocate than Jeremy Williams. here.
Ratatouille is no Incredibles.
Sir, nothing is an Incredibles, but Ratatouille is better than most of the Pixar movies, which is a high bar.
I think Up and Monsters Inc. are both better than Ratatouille.
that's probably true.
So I'm excited for this, for Inside
Okay.
Up. It's a very high concept film. I'm glad that they debuted at Cannes. Has it debuted yet?
Yeah, people left the theater in tears. It's reviewed unbelievably well.
Awesome.
I will. I don't like the festival circuit reviews because I will say people also stood up and were brought to tears and gave standing ovations for Clerks 2 when that debuted.
I mean, that donkey scene at the end, it's very moving.
Standing ovation for Clerks 2 at the film festival.
Wasn't
which premiered.
Jupiter ascending at Sundance?
You know, I'd say let's wait for reviews. I'm gonna watch it.
we're going to watch it regardless.
I'm gonna give it. I think
You know it's going to be 90s. I mean, it's going to be a good movie, right?
I think that judging from what he did with Up,
Yeah.
he has a really strong sense of emotional connection.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And this movie is
Yeah.
all about emotions. It is literally the teaching your child the emotions
Yes.
toys that you and Gary have taught your
we
child.
are all about that.
So it's that brought to life. So how could that not be a success?
I've told the story on the podcast before of you and me and Evan from PC Gamer thinking, hey, let's skive out of E3 parties one year and we'll go see Up in the theater. And this was probably 3 years into trying to have a kid. And I was bawling by the end of the cold open of the movie. And you guys were
Everyone
just like,
was.
yeah, I mean, well,
It all worked
it
out.
hits harder at certain times, but yeah, it's brutal. I'm in. Like I rescinded my earlier concerns. I thought that the first trailer was kind of a little bit weirdly sexist for
Oh, really?
Pixar. That was my objection.
I thought it was weird. The one where they ripped a lot of their own content and they showed emotions from many of their
Oh,
movies.
no, I'm talking about the one where they showed the husband and the wife sitting at the dinner table, and the two different inner voices are having the conversation with each other, and it was like the 50s era gender stereotypes.
Not sure I've even seen that.
Yeah.
I'm avoiding that. The
It's,
trailers.
it's a good policy to avoid the trailers. AT&T, Uber poached basically the entire robotics department from Carnegie Mellon to start a self-driving car team in Pittsburgh.
Cool. Google is rolling out its self-driving cars on public streets. So
Yes.
this is not the Lexi, that SUV,
Or
that
the
has
Prius.
LiDAR, or the Prius. This is their pod car with no steering wheel.
Well, only streets that they have scanned, right?
Only streets that they have scanned, only within Mountain View, but
Okay.
it's not the private streets. It is going to be among the GP, general public. And they did reassure that people that these cars will have drivers in them to take over control. if
How will
need
they take
to.
over control? There's no
They-
wheel.
Well, these models will have steering wheels.
Oh.
Putting steering wheels in them. It's like Mad Max. You got to bring your own steering wheel and plug that in.
Half measures.
And then they won't go above 25 miles per hour.
I mean,
So-
for where they're talking about driving, these 25 miles an hour is the right speed.
I just want to see them on the road. I will hang out in Mountain View and follow.
You know, we could rent a car. Hold on, I can't say this on the podcast. Never mind. We'll talk about it later.
You could practically keep up with those guys on a boosted board.
Yeah, I suppose so. Wow. While controlling a quadcopter for their sky shots.
AT&T is killing the 2-year phone contract. They're pushing everybody toward AT&T next.
Hate AT&T next.
This is not a surprise. Norm, are you desperately? When are you going to buy a new phone and they're not going to let you change your contract over?
I'm going to hold on to unlimited data for as long as I can.
Never gone more than 8 gigs for 2 of us. Never.
I never have to worry about it.
Instagram layout came to Android now. This is their, when you're on Instagram and you see those annoying collages that people make, this is their tool to making the collage look a little bit better.
Okay.
So if you want to have 3 pictures in your Instagram instead of just one, they'll help you do
I've
that.
done a 180 on Instagram.
Square?
I think. No. I think there's a I think Square Photography. And teaches I think Instagram as a whole, including the subsets of 1, Square Photography, and 2, the filters, and 3, the micro adjustments, which they keep on adding.
What
Those
are the micro
tools,
adjustments? I don't use
You can do
Instagram.
brightness, contrast, highlights, lights, darks, colors, warm, dark, and actually do actual skewing and warping.
Oh.
In the tools and
It's like mini
with
Photoshop?
sliders. It has become a mini Photoshop, and the fact that they went from just a suite of features and filters to start with to increasing granularity, I think is a really good thing for photography.
For people who are laymen and
People are learning-
are interested but don't have $1,000 DSLR. or
They're
something
learning
like that.
things about photography that they didn't know, and it's on the language of Instagram, but it makes the transition that much easier if they wanted to start doing real photo editing.
So now we're into the listener's choice portion of the show. Do you guys know what internet.org is?
I don't.
Oh, it's with Facebook's free internet, right?
It's Facebook's free internet for the developing world. It's basically people are. So the pitch is, hey, we're going to bring a subset of the internet to people in countries where they can't get internet, and they're going to provide hardware and all the stuff that you need, basically.
Okay.
Which sounds good.
Yep.
The EFF and other people are pretty upset about it because of some of the limitations that Facebook has imposed. One is that they're gating the number of sites that are participants. So they're going to go for presumably top 100 or top 1,000 or top 10,000 or something like that sites.
What are these, like cached websites? What?
It's unclear exactly how that stuff works. I think it's just that they're only making certain things available so that they don't end up in a situation where somebody gets their internet.org device and then BitTorrents, and fucks up their bandwidth for everybody. Right. There'll be stripped down versions of the site. So like the MSN version will have a lot of the thing that makes me think that is that they're taking out a lot of the heavy stuff like Flash and video and things like that, as I understand it. They're not allowing encryption, which is bad. So first off, the filter means it's not a net neutrality thing, not really the internet at that point. The no encryption is dangerous for a multitude of reasons. If anything, we should be doing encryption on everything rather than nothing. And the EFS basic policy is that this isn't the internet, even though they have an expensive domain name. So we'll keep you posted on that as things move forward.
Yeah, that domain name's misleading.
Yeah.
The other thing Facebook related and more relevant to maybe people around here and users of Facebook is that on their mobile site, they are now bypassing the web browser completely. So right now, if you click a web link in the Facebook app, it loads a version of Safari. And loads a website. They are just working with publishers to cache that data.
Mostly news organizations right now.
To just load basically their simplified Instapaper style versions. And the point is that it's all about urgency. I to some degree I agree with the goal of this, even though it's a filtered Facebook experience.
The problem is a lot of organizations, like the speed optimization is literally the last thing that they do after they do a new design, and you end up with pages that take 10 seconds to load, which there's a lot of data that says if your page takes more than 2 seconds to load, half of your audience just clicks away before the page loads. And that's gotten, like, that for a while, people were a little more okay with that when we switched to mobile. But the mobile, at this point, if your mobile site doesn't load as fast as your desktop site, you're fucking up. So, I really profoundly dislike the AOL-ification of Facebook. The fact that it's become the internet for millions and millions of people, billions of people probably. But I mean, if the New York Times is a bad example, but if your local newspaper is taking 10 seconds to load a page, then they get what they deserve, right?
Yep.
What else do we have here? Going down the list. Do we want to talk? Did you watch the Supergirl trailer?
Well, you're skipping a bunch of stuff.
Okay. Do you want to talk about the Fujifilm?
Yeah,
X-T10?
two interesting cameras announced this week. Fuji X1010,
XT10,
which is a smaller compact version of their APS-C Fuji XT1, I believe. Really good camera. The new one, very similar specifications, but a lot more compact. Panasonic also has something that's a small version of their GH4, $800 cameras. I think these are interesting, and they'll be competitive against Sony's A-series alpha mirrorless cameras. Asus also announced the Zenfone 2. Now, this is interesting because it follows a trend of really low-cost, high-end phones from companies like OnePlus One and Asus. This one's $300 off contract, 64 gigs full HD screen, but early reports say that it also has a ton of bloatware. We're going to try to get one in, see if we can remove that bloatware and how good a phone you can get. $300 off contract.
$300. I mean, I love that there's phones at that price point.
With high-end phones.
It's good. Yeah, like
high-end
not
phones
junk
at
phones.
that price point, I think, is a good trend. Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow. You guys have thoughts?
I didn't see Legends of Tomorrow. I don't even know what that is.
That's the DC show. I don't know if it is technically a spin-off of Arrow and Flash. So Arrow and Flash, both very successful DC Comics characters on TV right now. They have their own TV cinematic universe, completely unrelated. So what Zack Snyder is doing with Batman vs Superman, this is going to be like their Avengers with kind of B-grade superheroes, fan favorites, but not as well known as Superman and Flash. The Supergirl stuff that looked terrible.
I didn't think the Supergirl stuff looked that bad.
So it's a TV show.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like a TV show about Supergirl.
No, it looked like that parody Black Widow trailer they did on SNL.
It also looked like that.
And the whole point of that being satire was it was just like, what are we, in the 80s now? The girl has personal problems, and yet she saves the world.
Well, when you put it that way, it sounds bad.
She has a crush on a boy. Oh, no.
We'll see.
I haven't watched it.
I do not have high hopes for that.
I didn't think it looked that bad, but
I've seen the Supergirl trailer from the movie from like 1983.
movie's bad too.
Have you seen that movie?
Yeah, I watched it.
I don't think I've ever seen it.
It was like a Saturday afternoon movie a lot when I was a
Daryl
kid.
Hannah, right?
No, it was not
Super-
Daryl Hannah. It's somebody that was never in anything again.
Is that true?
I think so.
Oh, all right.
We'll look it up.
I hate to say it, guys, but I think I better take off.
Yeah, we'll catch you next week,
I
Jeremy.
gotta
Thanks for
leave
coming
early.
by. I know you've got an early one.
Have you been testing anything?
Well, no, but the Star Trek chair video went up last week.
Yeah, congratulations.
I had a lot of fun with the response to that. It seemed like a lot of people liked it. I met a lot of people at Pinagogo because of that video.
Really?
Oh, great.
People walked
that's
up to me
awesome.
and said that they'd seen it and how cool it was. They all really enjoyed your show. I even met a guy who watches our podcast regularly. He's like, I like the Star Trek video, but the podcasts are great.
Thanks, listener.
No
was
one
great.
ever says that.
So I'll see you guys
Cool.
later.
Have a good week, Jeremy. Thanks for coming by.
Thanks,
Thanks.
guys.
I'm going to kill Jeremy's mic. And let's see what else we got here. Do we want to talk? They stealth released a MacBook Pro 15-inch with the Force Touch trackpad and the new processors.
No new processors.
No new processors?
Look, it says right there, no Broadwell U.
Why would they not do that?
That's a very good question.
Fucking Apple.
Oh, very good question.
That's crazy. There's a Chrome extension that puts tabs to sleep to save battery and processor power on OS 10. Don't know
Good.
anything about that. That
Thank
would be
goodness.
awesome.
Holy
I
crap.
installed it. I'll let you know how it goes next week.
Is this an official Google extension?
No, of course not.
Oh, then I'm not installing it. No thanks.
Come on, live on the edge, man.
I keep my extension free.
Extension free is a good way to live. Let's see. Spotify and Starbucks have a deal now where baristas get free premium and they curate the music. I assume all of this means all the music at Starbucks is now going to come through Spotify.
So are they still going to sell compilation CDs? Can I get the sweet tones of what's
They
that
don't-
dude, that piano player?
I don't
dude?
think they've done compilation CDs in a long time. They Starbucks is a shocking place, like one of the great resellers of CDs now in a world without CDs. Think about that. Eurovision. Do you know what Eurovision is, Norm?
Spotify also made an announcement this morning.
I missed that.
They are doing, in addition to music now, they are also doing curated, automated, algorithmically generated playlists, not only for music depending on your quote-unquote mood, but also podcasts and video. So they're definitely trying to become more of a YouTube-like big media company. I think that the big problem for Spotify users is that they realize they spent hundreds of dollars over the past X number of years on these music subscription services, and they're only listening to maybe not hundreds of dollars worth of music. So they're trying to get people to listen to more music. Of course, the more that helps expand discovery, and I don't know how the algorithms, how well they're going to work.
It's a much better value for me now that I have the world of kids music to deal with than it was before, because I realized with RDO that I was paying $8 a month or $10 a month or something for a couple of listens on new albums a month that I probably could have gotten from Pandora or free Spotify or something like that. With the kids music, it is amazing because it's infinite entertainment in the car and stuff like that.
The kids are less discriminate, I think, about music. Kids music, a kid within the genre at a certain age than adults are. Adults are picky.
Well, dude, you have no idea. Kids are crazy picky. The difference for me is that it's not just music. It's not just traditional music that you're thinking of, like your Wiggles and all that business. It's also like the storybooks that used to be on 45 Records when I was a kid are all on Spotify or a lot of them are on RDO. And those are great for, hey, we have a 20-minute car ride and we need to entertain somebody for a little bit.
One of the interesting algorithm things they're doing is that if you are running, for example, with Spotify, it'll tap into your phone's GPS or tracking, or maybe even the pedometer, and based on what your pace, it thinks your pace is,
Beat matches your pace?
it will choose songs to match pace. I don't think it'll actually. I don't think they have the data sets, so they know the tempos for the songs.
I bet
to
they
beat
do.
match. But that's the dream. The dream is you're running at a certain cadence, and it matches the tempo for a song. So it plays the songs in your playlist that matches exactly your cadence of your step.
You know what I need? I just need Eye of the Tiger,
Wow.
full repeat. Yeah. Nothing but Eye of the Tiger. Norm, do you know what Eurovision is?
No.
I'm going to explain this really badly.
Okay.
Eurovision is a pan-European singing competition. There is a process by which teams are selected to represent their countries. Then people get crazy nationalistic about their support for their countries, and they compete in a multi-day, week, month. I don't know. It goes on. Seems like it goes on for a while. Tournament. And somebody asked if we had thoughts about it. I'm assuming that since you didn't know what it was until moments before, you don't. It's apparently quite a spectacle, as I understand it. So there's a lot of crazy costumes, and there's like dancing and all sorts of bananas stuff.
Vaguely familiar. I'm sure we've talked about it at one point while Gary was.
I don't think it existed when Gary lived in England. I think it's relatively new.
Well, I'm sure Gary has opinions about it.
Well, that's true. So I know Australia's in the competition this year because somebody typed that into the Listener's Choice podcast notes.
Okay.
I don't know how to pronounce the name of the next company.
Let's skip that.
Ubisoft is no longer releasing titles on 360 or PS3, which means the last generation is probably done. RIP Xbox 360. You were good for a long time.
About time.
Hubble Space Telescope is now 25 years old. Operation time. Do you remember how old you were when the Hubble Space Telescope was launched?
I know how old I was because of math.
Do you remember?
I absolutely do not remember.
Okay. I remember did you get that NASA, the newsletter thing? You could send your address in if you were a kid and they would send you a letter, like a newsletter three or four times a year.
Oh.
I don't know if they still do that, but it was awesome. Boy. It was, Spinoffs was the name of it. It was all the stuff that like is cool for kids at NASA. A lot of stuff about smoke detectors, it turns out. Chrome has a new video render coming that will play 4K videos smoothly. That's a problem for the future.
It's a little smoother. Right now, 4K video over YouTube at least is delivered it's with the Google codec, the one they're pushing.
The WebM?
WebM? It's yeah.
I thought WebM's the open one. I think they have a fork of it or something. I can't remember.
It's whatever it is. It's not what normal video.
It's not H.264.
It's not H.264.
It's not H.265 yet either, right?
So that's why only 4K video only works on Chrome right now.
And is it software renderer?
And not it's hardware renderer. Very computationally intensive. So 4K video not so smooth right now, but hopefully this will improve it.
The Xbox One TV tuner is now out. It's $60, which is a lot cheaper than the Hauppauge one that previously worked.
It's also made by Hauppauge.
Yeah, it's the same. I mean, yeah.
So the idea with this is that if you have an Xbox One and you don't pay for cable, but you want to tap into some of Xbox One's media TV
like PVR
menu, capabilities, you can plug a TV tuner into it. You will need an antenna.
As far as
on where you live, what digital signals you'll get, but you do get to pause TV.
But you can't say, "Hey, always record Survivor."
You can't record, you can't scrub.
Yeah.
You can pause for 30 minutes.
And then fast forward to catch back up, or can you skip ads?
I would
assume if you can pause.
I don't know.
Well, we'll see. I'd probably order one of those just to see what the deal is. Someone reverse engineered Wipeout, the PlayStation game, to run in a web browser as a proof of concept. That's neat. People have been doing that stuff for ages. There's a couple of Google I/O rumors. They're saying that they're going to have a surprise that will blow your socks off, which some people take to mean that they're going to make shoes. That seems very literal.
Is this, do you think it's a pedometer?
I hope not, because I can't.
Shoes?
Why would you need a pedometer and?
Well, because you don't want to carry your phone around.
A sensor, maybe.
Right. If you put a sensor if they
Nike
design a sensor that works perfectly with shoes, it does not get in the way.
Nike did those for 10 years and just killed them a few years ago. So.
But they weren't also connected potentially to Google services and devices.
But they could have been. I mean, it was just a Bluetooth thing, right?
Something that will blow our socks off.
It had a radio, it wasn't Bluetooth. Project Era updates, presumably, and more updates on what to expect with Chromebooks going forward. I think people underestimate Chromebooks pretty consistently. Whenever we talk about them, people always say, "Hey, look, you should really check out Chromebooks. They're interesting.
They sell great
at the low end of the market.
Yeah, and if you really don't need to do that much, they're cheap and they're everything web browsing and productivity in a web browser window.
And on that note, it's time to talk about, let's take a quick word for our sponsor. Message from our sponsor. Oop. Hey, Norm.
Hey, Will.
Do you know about Tested Premium memberships?
I absolutely do. I'm in them.
You are. Tested Premium memberships are a great way for people who like Tested to support us and the work that we create on a day-to-day basis. With a whole series of extra, basically the deal is you pay us some money and then we give you a whole bunch of extra content. We're getting ready to have a big premium subscription offering in the next, let's say, 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, so like last year, Adam drafted. We sold a awesome poster of the Mecha Hand replica that Adam made, and this year we'll have something similar, equally awesome. I would dare say even more awesome. So be on the lookout for that. Plus, we're running several weeks of builds going on right now. So
if you want to watch us make a keyboard, you can do that today.
Yes,
we got a lot of people had thoughts about our SMT soldering skills. Yeah, we're going to get an oven or a heat gun or something. Anyway, thanks to Tested Premium members for supporting today's podcast. And now, back to the show. Norm, what have you been testing?
I took the Phantom 3 out flying yesterday, and I actually have it right here.
You went for one flight, precisely. I
went for 4 flights yesterday.
4 flights?
The day was not over when I left.
Very good. What do you think so far? What's your early impression? I'm kind of most interested in what the footage looks like.
The footage looks really good.
Point.
I mean, it's a much better sensor. The new field of view is much better. The 4K video we've seen when we did that first hands-on. I was more interested in the flight characteristics, and it definitely feels really stable. But I'm gonna, after flying with this for a bit, I'm gonna go back to the Vision. The Phantom 2 Vision Plus and see whether that's noticeably different. Because I think I'm already at a point where I feel so comfortable with this that I don't remember how it was flying in the Phantom 2.
Is it mostly at takeoff and landing because of the down-facing camera? Is that where stuff's changed?
It's both. They're much more powerful motors, so it's stability in winds and high altitudes. In my flight so far, I have done auto takeoff and auto landings because they work so well.
Really?
Yeah.
And auto takeoff goes to 20 meters and then goes straight up?
1.2 meters, hovers, and then you just take it up.
Okay. Interesting. Same thing for landing?
Landing, yeah, GPS landing, it'll come back to you, and then it's the same as the Phantom 2.
Cool. Let's see, I was hoping to talk to Jeremy about the Apple Watch. I'm kind of coming around on it a little bit. I think the apps are still...
Wait, so explain coming around on it a little bit.
So
what was your
profoundly
trajectory?
Negative for the first, let's say, 2 weeks.
Okay.
As my wife got her watch last week, and now I can use the digital touch stuff more often. So it's
Send
not
her
just
your heartbeat right now.
I did that a minute ago.
Wow.
She sent me hers. The tapping thing is really useful for getting attention. Like if she misses a text message or something and I need to get an answer about something, you can bang on it. She does the same thing for me. So like yesterday when we were on a location all day and I wasn't able to really check my phone, when she needed something, she just tapped me a few times and I noticed and picked up. It's the app situation is they should not have released it with third-party apps with the way they work currently. Like I said earlier, I haven't put the patch on yet, so maybe that's going to make a dramatic improvement. But I'm not optimistic.
You're not
that it's going to
the patch will increase.
That streaming apps from the phone is going to ever work better than it does right now. I think that they need native apps. No, I think they need to have apps that run on the phone, which is supposedly in the timeline for end of this year or later this year.
We also saw Pebble Time for a little bit at Makerfaire. That's something we mentioned. They wouldn't let us take any photos of it or video of it, but the color screen did look good, and it was running at a really good frame rate.
It still looks a little bit.
I mean,
it looks like it doesn't look like LCD. It still looks like e-ink or e-paper, whatever it is.
It embraces the low resolution.
Yeah.
So with the typeface they're choosing and the design, it's all a little pixel arty, a little blocky.
It was much better animation than we've seen on e-paper.
Yes,
I can't remember which one's which. It's e-paper and the Kindle is e-ink, right? Yeah. So it's much faster refresh rate than on even the best of the e-ink devices. I was pleasantly surprised. It looked good, and they had the plastic ones, which looked infinitely better than the plastic versions from the first generation. So we'll see.
I would say, I mean, they have to fill their Kickstarter orders. If you're interested in buying a Pebble, really try to find one in person to check it out before you buy one online, because they look different in person than they do with photos and renders.
So this is key to my criticism of the Apple Watch as it stands right now, and we're probably going to shoot the video next week, I guess. Mm-hmm. I feel like the stuff that it does is all stuff that the Pebble does really, really well. The stuff that it does that the Pebble doesn't do, it does very poorly at. So the apps, the Siri stuff is okay, but not great. I have actually been Hasselhoffing some and using it as a phone, like holding it up here and talking into it. And the call quality on both sides of that is quite good. like much better than I expected. So, to the point that I'll even answer calls in the car and stuff like that and use that. So anyway, that's what we're testing. I have some other stuff, but since we're short on time, I'm going to go ahead and blast on. And let's take a couple of questions.
We're really short on time.
We do the other one. Email.
Let's skip questions this week.
The audio is going right now, Norm, so you're talking over it. It's too late.
Questions. Boom.
Podcast@tested.com is the email address. Here is our first question. We've skipped them a lot over the last few weeks, so I'm not going to do it today. Christopher says, "Hey guys, I heard Will, Norm, and Jeremy talking about the Star Wars Despecialized editions a few weeks back and thought I should bring another restoration to your attention that isn't as well known. It's called Star Wars Legacy Edition, and it's restored single-handedly by a guy named Mike Verda. He's a composer and VFX artist who worked on the prequels, and he started working on this several years ago. He's doing frame by frame on episode 4 to restore it to its original condition, putting even the newest Blu-ray restoration to complete shame. You can check out his updates on his Vimeo page. So if you search for Mike Verda Vimeo, it basically goes there. And the clips that he shows are kind of amazing.
Not really a question, but thanks
It's
for the
not a
tip.
question. It's more feedback. The next question is from Sean. Sean says, "Hey guys, the screens I've seen for Windows 10 make it look like they're ditching the touch-heavy interface from 8. Running the early access demo trial thing so far, has that been your experience as well, or do they integrate touch into the basic Windows desktop better than in the past?" So the thing that if you're running on a Windows 10 on a machine that just has a keyboard and mouse, you're not going to see the touch stuff because it'll default to the start menu instead of the start screen. The start screen is still there if you have a touch device. You can flip it on if you, for some reason, are broken and prefer that. I haven't installed Windows 10 on that Spectre yet. That's next. It's for later this week, hopefully, if I have time. I'm interested to see how it works with touch. What I've read is that the touch registration on the desktop stuff is smarter this go round. It's just, the software that tells where you're intending to touch versus where your finger is gets better the more people use it and the more data they get. This next question is from Tyler. "Hey guys, how do you feel about the trend of the past decade of consumers becoming less and less willing to pay for media while the cost of creating media is staying the same or increasing?" And I'm going to skip because this is a really long question. But in most people's minds, the internet is free and things they consume on the internet should be free or supported with ads that they can easily ignore or block with increasing efficiency. But with the internet becoming more and more the primary way we consume media using things like YouTube, Spotify, Hulu, Netflix, and Amazon, do you think we're headed to a place where the cost to create media conflicts too heavily with the cost the average consumer is willing to pay under the ad-supported model? What do you think, Norm?
Freemium is a terrible model.
You mean ad-supported?
Purely ad-supported models, I think, are a thing of the past.
Doomed. Yeah, I mean, I think Netflix set a real bar for $8 a month when they started streaming and gave you basically infinite content, more than you could ever consume, for $8 a month.
Everyone, publishers, services, apps, no one should undervalue what they produce.
You mean they undervalue?
No one should undervalue
Right.
by releasing it for cheaper than they think they should.
Yeah.
Because that's a bad trend.
Yeah. And I mean, when you look at games, it's even worse because you see the problem. There was a thing on Polygon, I think this morning, about Kickstarter undervaluing games because people are releasing Kickstarters for a fraction of the money that they need to actually make the game, with the assumption that either they then knock loose additional funding or they have funding that's contingent on succeeding with a $500,000 Kickstarter or something like that. And that's setting, like, the cost of developing a game, even of relatively modest scale, like Double Fine Adventure or downloadable stuff, is still $4 or $5 million. I think the number that Ben gave at Polygon was the $10,000 per person per month. If you factor in all the software and healthcare and all the stuff that people need in order to live while they're making games, voice acting and all that kind of stuff, like it adds up really fast.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it for questions this week. If you have a question for This Is Only a Test, it's podcast@tested.com. Thanks for listening, guys, and we'll be back next week with more stuff. I think we have more videos from SCA coming up on Friday. Did we post the Dragon last week?
Dragon's available.
Yes.
Your Bong coffee machine.
That thing, so the Dragon is made by a guy named Sean Yarborough, I think.
La Colombe.
At La Colombe, which is in Delaware, New Jersey or something.
Pittsburgh.
It's a
Philadelphia,
coffee
sorry.
roaster. Yeah.
Philadelphia.
Someplace on the East Coast. And he wanted to make a brewer. He got together with a glass blower and wanted to make a brewer that used immersion methods like you'd find in a pour over or French press, and also the vacuum siphon that lets you really precisely control when the extraction of the coffee ends. And he made this thing. It looks like a bong. That has all of those things. It has a paper filter. It has an immersion process. It has a pump that lets you suck the coffee through the grounds when you're extracted enough. And I got to have a cup of coffee out of it. We made a little video about it. So
Cool.
definitely worth checking it out. And if you're into coffee. And I guess that's it for us.
Yeah,
more
that's it for this
Makerfaire.
week, with tons of stuff from Makerfaire up on the site.
All the Star Wars stuff done now? All the celebration stuff is done?
All the celebration stuff is done. We have stuff, more stuff from Rick Baker's collection. Go up on the site.
Yep.
We have weeks of builds going on.
Is there another week of build, or is it straight to something else on Friday?
Well, they're all technically weeks of build.
Okay.
But yes, there's
There's a
more
Lego
stuff
with Friends on Friday, starting on next week, next
starting
Monday.
Next week, yep.
Good. We have a good friend this time. Yeah, I think you guys are kind of like Phil. I mean, all of our friends are good, just to be clear. But anyway, that'll do it for us today. See you guys later. Thanks for watching.
Bye.
Today's outro is from General Desire. See you next week. Hi there. I didn't see you.
It's so big.
Well, thank you.
I don't know when that was from.
I have no idea.
Yeah. See you guys next week.